I was wanting, and one of the reasons I applied was the hands-on program of the AFI, and I thought that was what I needed, and it was, but I just didn't realize how well organized it was and how much work you actually get to do, because you're basically, if you're not doing your own films, you're constantly crewing and getting to see other people working and your fellow directors or other disciplines just working on set, and that's a place where I learned as much as I did in the classrooms.
What I didn't expect that I really enjoyed was the fact that you are held accountable for your work. You're given very, very in-depth critique, and you learn to take critique, and you learn to make it empower you, and it's something that takes a little while to get adjusted to, but you learn that your decisions are ultimately something you're going to have reasons for and account for, and that was valuable.
So I think it was a mixed bag. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I think that's also where you get your greatest lessons, because in that you find, okay, well, I can't communicate the same way with this person that I communicated with the last collaborator. And the things I thought I knew, I didn't actually know this time. So I think that's actually the strength, if nothing else, is the fact that you're just kind of you're thrown, what is the old phrase, out of the frying pan into the fire, and you're just kind of thrown in a bag with people and say, like, okay, now make it work. And you got like 6 weeks to make this work. Bye. So
yeah. Jumping off of that, I think sometimes you usually find a person or a team of people that you communicate really well with, and then you kind of just like stick with them, and then if they can't do it, someone else does it. But here, the point is that you have to change the teams on every film, and I feel like and maybe you find a connection, but it's okay. That connection is there, it's established, it's staged. But now you have to practice yourself. And to communicate, and you'll find that you can't talk the same way to every single person. You have to find a way to access them and to get the best out of them. So it's a really good practice of just like finding out how people function. So it's been a great experience just finding that about yourself, developing that ability to express yourself with different people and to motivate different people. Not everybody needs the same kind of support.
I think the raw amount of production you do, which is really unique to this program, I mean, when you think about it, 3 short films, 2 MOSs, a thesis, and then you're in a community of so many people who are always looking to make films, I mean, it's inevitable that the biggest surprise you learn about is yourself, because you're just doing so many different things. So I think to really take advantage of the experience, even if you knew what you wanted to say, AFI gives you the ability to try something that you are uncomfortable with and see what comes out of that.
That it's a static voice, a voice that you already have and you have defined, is going to be the least interesting one, because you're simply repeating yourself. And like Goran said, if there's something you understand, is that voice really has no meaning. It is how much truth can you put, and that's something that is driven to us from day one by teachers like Spera, Wagner, that it is the emotional truth of what you do that is going to bring out the voice. And if you found that truth and you're honest to yourself, ultimately that'll come through. Often when you're adding a voice to it, you learn at the beginning that you're actually flattening out what you're really trying to say.
Yeah, so I feel like whether you feel you have a voice yet or whether you feel you totally know you have a voice yet, you come here and you're going to learn something completely new. Learning acting through the context of as a director, I think, is incredibly important. And I feel like, because through the Meisner and stuff, you're also learning about blocking and like body language and everything that goes into it. And echoing what you said, I think, as directors, we are in charge of the actors more than anybody else on the set. Those are the people that we can touch. Like nobody else is in charge of actors like we are. So like that, to know what it's like for them to be directed, I think is incredibly important.
And I think one of the things to stress is how hands-on our classes are, not just the production work we do, but camera, which is another huge part of what we try and learn here. You take what you learn first year, which is how do you reduce the essence of a scene in one angle, and moving the camera, which is something I've never been forced to do. And it's incredibly provocative because you think you've got all these toys, all this coverage, you can spend a whole day covering a scene, but how would you tell it with one angle? And then second year, you get the flip side of that when you are forced in the realities of production to get as much coverage as you need. You know, you learn how to work with 2 cameras, how to approach that creatively. And I think the important thing to stress is just how hands-on that was, because we'd actually go out and we do it just like we approach our films in production.
I mean, another thing that you learned too that I thought was very valuable and unique to AFI, you sometimes even notice it in graduates that are making movies, is narrative POV. It's something that you come in and you have no idea what the hell they're talking about, and you think this POV is someone's looking over there, and you have to put the camera pointing over there. And as you go along the year, it's a conversation that keeps coming up. And there's a moment, there's a moment where you think you're never gonna get what they're talking about, and it ruins one of your cycles. And then you get it, and it turns into such a powerful tool. Like teachers like Peter Markham understand and basically take you to the next level on it, of how you use it.
It's hard with with family when you have to explain. You've invested this much time and finances and everything, and then it's not really certain what you're gonna do. I mean, there's no it's just hard to grasp that the nature of this industry that we all agreed for some reason to be a part of. And it's just, you start from a place and there's no formula. And all these people that are coming and talking to us about their careers that might be AFI alums, or whenever you talk to filmmakers, but you're always seeking for something like, oh, is that the way? Oh, no, maybe, look at that. No. But I mean, there's no, obviously there's no formula to it, and you just have to find your own. But the point is, I feel like the most beneficial thing you take from here is this understanding of film and story that has become a part of your subconsciousness during these 2 years, because you have so much practice and you watch so many people in their process fail and succeed, and you watch yourself as well. So you learn so much from that it becomes a kind of a organic, instinctual reaction when you hear a story. What doesn't work? It just becomes a part of you, and I think that's the greatest tool that will make you differentiate you from any other filmmaker there in the industry. And I think that's the thing that will help you the most.
To your question of what happens next, and I think I just talked to a girl who was thinking of applying to AFI, and I told her, if you want to learn a lot and you're coming for the education, do it. If you think it's going to open a door for you that will automatically get you work, it's not going to do that. That being said, I mean, at least having delivered my film, the way at least I've been taught here to approach my own career is more like a small business as opposed to being an employee. And 2 things that you learn, I think, that are very important is development, of which pitching is part of, and then specifically optioning and the whole legal process of that, and not to be afraid of it, that I think is incredibly helpful, that I had no idea about. For example, so now when I read a short story, or I read a book, or I read a play that I like, or even an article, I'm armed with the ability to approach that person. And again, it's more money, right? Or at least a conversation and a promise. But you start to develop this small business of yourself. And I think you learn here not to be afraid of that, because if you can survive the cycles that we do and the thesis that we do, and working with people you've never met before, and being critiqued by 200 of your peers at the same time, then really calling a guy and saying, I loved your story, I want to talk about it. I have the ability to make a film. I know these people in LA who can come together and make your work. They want to talk to you. And I mean, that's what I found having finished now. And I think it's not a step through the door, but it is a walkway that you can take.
It's not having that fear of no. Like, I think that's the big, because a lot of people are, especially when I talk to friends from outside of, especially outside of film, but outside of LA, it's like, well, what happens if you fail? What happens in this? It's not being afraid of no, and not being afraid to fall on your face, ultimately, and saying like, well, if I can make this and I have the resources to do it, what's the okay, so he doesn't want to make it. There's 1,000 other stories that I know how to attack and I know how to find based on the skill set that I've picked up.
Yeah, and I mean, just to jump off of that, and I think something people don't appreciate until they finish is we have the keys to physical production. I mean, as a director who's starting out with no credits, everybody's looking for an excuse to say no. And our ability to know all these people here, where we can say we can physically get this designed, we can physically get this shot, we can talk to a producer, we can call the hair and makeup people if we need to. I mean, we're people who are now able to say yes in a city where you hear a lot of no, and I think that's really, really valuable.